content is king. I don't believe that you can produce too much content because there's all these filters and things like that. And if you put enough out there, more people will see it. Welcome to the Matt Laricy Project. This is a show about all things real estate, business, marketing, and entrepreneurship. Each show consists of myself, Matt Laricy, a member of my team, and a guest. This week, Mickey is joining us. Mickey Hobson, how are we doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me back.
Good old Mickey's here. He's been, how many times have you been on the show now?
6, maybe?
6 times?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got season 2, EP11. It's called Lessons in Leadership, and we're excited to be talking to Phil Gafka, who's a certified business coach, founder, and principal of Leap Associates, and now author of Hole-in-One Leadership, 9 proven steps guaranteed to get you extraordinary results. We're going to be kind of diving into a lot of stuff about leadership today, but kind of let's get down to a little bit about a background of how you got to where you are today. How did you start getting into business coaching and stuff like that?
I was running a company and literally ended in an 11-second meeting. Hey, we sold a company. Here's your check. See ya. So
Come on.
Being a 10% owner means you know nothing of what's going on up above. And so it didn't hit me at that moment, but it did hit me that I'm not going to go through this again. And the way to do that was start my own company.
Wait, so did you have any idea that that was coming? And what type of business was it?
We were in the appliance distribution business.
Okay.
This was Viking Range.
Yeah.
And I had left my previous company to start this company with Viking. And that was my 11 seconds with Fred. Fred Carl's the guy that started Viking Range. It literally was an 11-second meeting at a trade show.
No kidding. He just came up and was like, hey.
No, I said, come up to the meeting room. I go in there. There's nobody in there. Fred walks in, sits down, says, Phil, we sold the distributorships. There's new owners. They're bringing in their own people. And someone else will come in and give you your severance package. And he got up and walked out.
And you never seen him again?
No.
Man, that's crazy. So that moment, you kind of were like, what am I going to do now? Obviously.
Well, a lot of things go through your head. One of it, who am I? Okay,
Yeah.
I was the CEO. I had this. And now I'm like, okay. But when I changed the question in my head to who do I want to be
Right.
versus who am I got a much clearer path of what I was going to do.
Right.
And it had to be my own business because I wasn't going to be in that position again.
Yeah.
My wife said, go run another company. And I said, why? And she said, for the security. And I said, my security just ended in an 11-second meeting.
Wow.
I don't see it.
Yeah.
Right.
So I started my own company.
That's pretty, it's kind of, I know it sounds terrible to say it's pretty cool, but it's pretty cool that you were able to kind of pivot and realize really quickly that you needed to kind of go a different direction.
Well, the motivation never to be in that position again, to let somebody else have that kind of control over me or my life.
You kind of feel like you have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder after that?
And not so much a chip, just good motivation.
Yeah. So what types of credentials did you think you need to help advise other businesses and entrepreneurships and stuff like that?
Well, I think the advantage of being a wholesale distributor, we did nothing but call on other businesses. So you start to see those common denominators. Why are those well-run businesses all the time? And why is this other group always in the tank? And so you start to see what those foundational things are that exist or are missing. And then from the leadership development standpoint, sitting in the CEO chair, I've run 2 companies, is you learn the difference between management and leadership. They're 2 very different disciplines.
Huh.
And I think that's part of the problem with a lot of American businesses these days. They spot somebody sharp, like that Matt guy, he's pretty sharp, and they move him into a management position. 9 times out of 10, they do a poor job of training somebody to manage. And I think we should be developing as leaders, not training them as managers. You manage process, but you lead people.
Yeah. That's actually that's a pretty good.
Pretty profound.
Yeah. I don't think about
I
stuff
wish I
like
made
that.
it up. But
Yeah. So what kind of clients you typically look for then, like when you're trying to do this?
my clients are all over the place because what I do is very foundational.
Yeah.
So I've worked with city government, county government, manufacturing, wholesale, retail, professional services, and I even have coached in the medical community. I've coached a lung transplantation surgeon.
Wow.
And believe me, I know nothing about lung transplantation.
Yeah, but you know about leadership, right?
Exactly.
So how did you start to be able to gain clients? You know, did you seek people out or
I started networking.
Okay.
When I started this in September of '08, which is the month the market crashed.
That's a great time to start a business.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Great time.
Yeah. Very good economy.
But I did not go back to my previous appliance contacts because their markets were in the tank. So I started out and I started networking.
Yeah.
And I learned what to say, learned how to say it. I actually started to learn what my value was. At that point, there were so many people displaced. Everybody was a coach of some type.
Yeah.
And so since there's no barrier to entry,
Yeah.
it's not like getting a CPA or passing the bar.
Yeah.
And just had to figure out, okay, what is it that I bring to clients? And what's the value that I bring to them so they want more?
What was that moment like though when you? Because you said you started networking. I'm assuming you went to like networking events and stuff like that.
It was nothing to have 20, 25 cups of coffee a week with people.
Yeah.
Just trying to get out and meet
Yeah.
people and figure
Get
out,
your
okay,
name out
how do
there.
you do this?
Yeah.
I mean, the first networking event I went to, I had a drink in one hand, hors d'oeuvres in the other. I'm going, now what do I do?
Right. I mean, it's kind of uncomfortable when you first start going in there. You kind of get in the groove after you go to a couple of them, like how to talk to people
Well,
and
how
stuff
to
like
talk,
that.
I mean, what I've learned over the years when you're doing that is you want to be able to say something that's you
Right.
versus what take an example, attorneys. There's 40,000 or so attorneys in the Chicago market.
Right.
All right, well, how do you be different? If
Right.
It's not what you do, it's how you do it.
Yeah.
So to be able to explain how you do what you do in a kind of a provocative manner
Yeah.
so that the person you're talking with goes, tell me a little more about that.
Yeah.
If you say that same mundane thing, I've worked with a few financial advisors, and the line I don't particularly like is, well, I provide a holistic approach. It's like, stop.
Right.
Doesn't that sound
Yeah.
like blah, blah, blah?
Yeah.
So
Totally.
they go, yeah. They go, then why are you saying it?
Yeah.
You got to go inside and figure out why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Why and how, not what.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big thing that we get, especially with newer agents in our business, is people always say like, well, I'm going to be doing like a lot of networking events, and I always say, well, like, how are you going to step outside of your shell, right? Because when I first got in the business was 06, but I took the company downtown in 08 of September, so very similar
That was a good
position.
time, yeah.
And I didn't know anybody, and there's 40,000+ agents, and I remember going to my first networking events, and it was I felt like I wanted to leave in the first 2 seconds. You look around, you don't know anybody, and even though I feel like I'm an outgoing guy, it is a little intimidating when you've
is.
never been to one. What do you think is the best advice you could give somebody when they go to their first one to kind of step out their shell?
Well, I would advise don't get there when it starts. Give it about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I tend to go and look and see, okay, I walk in the room and say, who's holding court? Who's that one or two people that's got 5 or 6 people around them?
Right.
I want to go meet that person. If they can hold the court with that little group, they have something going on.
Right.
So I'm going to go find a way to get in that group, and I'm going to get a conversation going with that person. Say, hey, let's go grab a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
But I've also found for all the time, yeah, we'll do that. If I don't initiate it, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't happen.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so you have to be the initiator of those contacts.
Right. Yeah. Because like I said, it's an uncomfortable thing, but networking is a super powerful tool, and there's a lot of people that see a lot of success from it, and it starts small. It starts by going to one and something like that.
It does, and if you learn the correct way. Okay,
Yeah.
networking, I think some people go for the quick hit.
Right.
It's all about getting to know somebody.
Mm-hmm.
If you may know somebody, they might even like you.
Right.
But until you can develop some level of trust, there's no business.
Right.
Nobody wants to refer somebody in and have that person call back and say, hey, Matt, what the heck were you thinking when you referred that Mickey guy in?
Right.
Okay, so you're only going to refer in people that you trust.
Right.
So how do you develop a relationship to get to a level of trust so that when you refer Mickey and they go, man, that was a home run, send me more like that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And it's about follow up at those things too, and a lot of people forget about following up with people after the fact. What about success that you could share from clients that you've had that have seen a lot of success from your coaching sessions and stuff like that?
I've had clients, the lung transplantation surgeon actually changed hospitals based on some of the things that we worked on. His personal culture was different than the culture of the hospital.
Yeah.
The hospital was churn it. He said, I'm here to save lives.
Right.
And so through our work, he realized he could find a better match in
Right.
the hospital he was at.
Yeah.
I have clients that have grown their businesses multiple times, sold businesses. The most fun is just to watch somebody grow in it. See that light in their eye goes off that, now they understand what they need to do to lead what they're trying to lead versus trying to manage it forward.
Yeah. There's kind of a tipping point in your career sometimes when you kind of figure it out. I say it's like a machine, and all of a sudden it starts clicking a little bit better, and then you kind of start picking up on it and
Exactly.
figuring out kind of like how everything works.
Yeah, it took me about 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And do you find that they stick with you, like that doctor you said, once he's made the transition, do they sort of keep coming back?
Well, it's funny with him. Actually, we're working on a joint venture right now with a buddy of his from high school who's at a hospital in Perth, Australia.
Wow.
And we're actually doing some work with them because there is in the medical community, like most other enterprises, they need a little bit of leadership help.
Yeah. How do coaching and leadership kind of play into each other?
We all have blind spots.
Yeah.
Okay, you have them, I have them. And that's what's, whether we put them in our way, whether we let an institution or somebody else put them in our way, you can't deal with them until you can surface them.
Yeah.
So a lot of coaching is asking questions. I make it real clear I'm not a consultant.
Right.
I don't come in and tell anybody what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But with the right kind of questions, we can surface what somebody's bumping up against.
Yeah.
And once we surface that, it doesn't make it go away, but if we can put a definition to it, we can now create a plan of how we want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Do we want to bust through it? Do you want to do an end around? Do you want to go over, go under? But you can't make those decisions until you can identify what's in the way.
Yeah.
And you can't ask yourself the really tough questions.
Right.
And if you got close and you said, yeah, I'll answer that when I drive home today. No, you won't. It's hard to hold your own feet to the fire.
Totally.
And that's the advantage of coaching, right question and accountability for the answer.
Yeah. I mean, do you find that like accountability has been a little bit more harder with different generations? Because I feel like younger millennials, and I'm a millennial, like the lack of accountability or like, have you seen that at all?
I don't see a
between
lack of
different
accountability.
generations?
I mean, this is the first time we've had 5 generations in a workforce.
Yeah.
And the problem is people key into the differences. I mean, they say that, millennials are job hoppers.
Yeah.
No loyalty.
Yeah.
Well, let's look at how they were raised, okay? When millennials were kids, divorce was at an all-time high.
Right.
All right, so maybe it wasn't their parents but a friend's parents. Somebody they knew got a divorce. All right, so what'd you learn about loyalty? It was also a time of great corporate downsizing. Same thing, mom and dad had a great job, just got a review and a raise. Oops, all of a sudden your job moved out to another country.
Right.
All right, so what'd they learn about loyalty?
Mm-hmm.
Plus, you don't have pensions in companies anymore.
Right.
So the old baby boomer idea, work at a country, get your gold watch, or a company, get your gold watch, those don't exist any longer.
Right.
So it's not that they're wrong. They're
Yeah.
just different. They have a different value structure.
Yeah.
And it's not that they're wrong in any shape or form. This is what they know.
Mm-hmm.
The accountability side is they need greater clarity from the organization they're involved with. Where are we going and how are we going to get there? And then there are also different voice with millennials for that social awareness or social consciousness.
Right.
What are we doing for the world versus just trying to make a buck?
Yeah.
And so there's a little different level there.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting way to put it. Do you see different qualities in leaders in different generations? You mentioned there's 5 different generations now. Like, is there a noticeable difference between like your older to the millennials?
No, the good leaders are nothing but the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
They're clear on where they're going. They're very true to their culture, and they own it. And to me, ownership is a step above accountability.
Yeah.
I can hold you accountable. When you hold yourself accountable, that's owning it.
Yeah. Well, I actually say the biggest, I mean, in our industry, accountability, I feel, is huge because there's mess ups all the time. And I say that a biggest lesson I tell younger agents and stuff like that is that it's hard for somebody to get really, really mad at you and yell at you really bad. If you're like, I totally messed up. Here's what I did wrong. I'm sorry. I'm going to fix it. But at the end of the day, I realized I dropped the ball and I want to apologize to you. Well, they could keep yelling and yelling and yelling at you. But when you own it, it's kind of like the end of the argument. Now
Exactly.
they almost start feeling bad because they're yelling at you. It's when you're like, oh, it's not my fault. John did it really bad and blah, blah, blah. But the minute you take blame for it and you fall on that sword, even I do it just in spite because like it's just easier to just fall on the sword and say that you're sorry and apologize. The conversation pivots so quickly to, you're right, I'm happy for all the hard work you're doing for me. Let's fix this problem. And I think, taking that accountability is probably one of the easiest ways to kind of diffuse an argument as well.
Right. And it's, the problem with when you move into organizations, though, they don't always handle mistakes well.
Yeah.
And so the culture of an organization of what do they do when you make a mistake? You get your head chopped off?
Mm-hmm.
I read about a company who in their weekly meeting of managers paid $50 cash
Mm-hmm.
to the person that made the biggest screw up of the week. And you go, why would they do that? All right. They not only wanted people to think outside the box, but act outside.
Yeah.
Go try it.
And take risks, yeah.
Now, you couldn't make the $50 2 weeks in a row for the same error. You had to learn from it.
Yeah.
But that's culture. How do you treat mistakes?
That's pretty
do
good,
you
actually.
celebrate?
Yeah.
Or do you chop somebody's head off? In that case, everybody goes into turtle mode
Yeah.
and just pulls in.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Plays it safe, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good. So, Now, what about this? The book. You recently wrote a book titled "Hole in One Leadership: 9 Proven Steps Guaranteed to Get You Extraordinary Results." What inspired you to write this book?
A lot of things. There's been a number of things in my head for years. I got a lot of motivation from friends and clients. And then even in networking, I'd be talking to something, we actually know what you're talking about.
Right.
And to me, the golf metaphor, I'm a golfer.
Yeah.
There's just been always a number of things in my head that are very, very parallel in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And as an example, game of golf, it's you, the club, and the ball.
Yeah.
All right. In leadership, it's you. What are you doing with it? You can't lead others until you can lead yourself.
That's true.
So leadership starts with you. So I've just been able to put a number of things together in my head over the years and decided to finally put it to paper.
That's awesome. How like, what's that process look like when you're like, I want to write this book, and then trying to get like a book deal done, like a publisher, and getting it all written? Like,
that was the easy part.
Really?
The
Okay.
publisher, I have friends from networking that have published books. You get names. The biggest thing was really getting on track. And so what I did is I hired a coach.
yeah,
And Sarah was fabulous. She's done this before. She's done her own books. She coaches a lot of people. So she knew how to take somebody through that process and hold me accountable to get my work done and make my progress on the book.
that's so. And did she kind of like read through some of the stuff and kind of tell you like which direction it was going in, like in the right direction, stuff like
Yeah,
that?
and good reinforcement that I had some good material,
Yeah.
and the way to shape it, and I've kind of structured it. I start off each chapter with a quote from a famous golfer.
Okay.
I've got some text about that topic, and then I have a couple of sections in each that says for,
Yeah.
which is where, a client is off base.
Yeah.
How do I help them get back?
Right.
And at the end of the chapter is a couple of gimmies or takeaways.
Yeah.
And then there's a section for the driving range. What are you going to go practice?
Right.
So it's not about just reading the book. It's what are you going to do different now that you've read something?
Yeah.
Most leadership books, and there's about 47,000 of them,
Wow.
is how somebody else did it.
Yeah.
Okay, so unless it's directly applicable to you, that's how somebody else did it.
Right.
I tried to make hey, what are you going to do now with this information?
Yeah. That's a good way to spin it. How's the response been to the book?
Response has been good. I just finished up with a client I was working with for 6 months, and I said, okay, how could I have done this better with you? He said, you could have given me your book earlier. I
Yeah.
think that is a plus.
Any Gary player in there?
Not Gary, but he might be in book 2,
Okay.
the back
Yes.
9.
Yeah.
Now, you outline 9 steps in the book, and we can't obviously touch on all of these here today, but what would you say are like 3 easy strategies to incorporate into leadership to become successful?
The primary 2 would be figuring out where you're trying to go, all right? Is this a job to you or a career?
Mm-hmm.
If you're running an organization, what is it that you aspire to become? It's
Yeah.
not what you're doing today. It's X number of years down the road, depending on where you're at. Could be 10, could be 20, could be 30. But what do you want to look like somewhere down the road? What do you aspire to be?
Yeah.
And then the other second major component is the culture. Okay, how are you going to do your what? And that's where a lot of people fail is you can have, let's see, I think it was Tom Peters said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. All right,
Yeah.
so you can have the best strategy. If your culture doesn't support it,
Mm-hmm.
I will guarantee you one thing, you'll never achieve that vision.
Yeah.
And the culture is twofold. It's one, being very honest about what you want it to be. The harder part is living it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, too, that you said that, is this a job or a career? That's a big thing that we talk about all the time because, in your opinion, what do you think defines the difference between a job and a career? Because this is a big thing I talk about to a lot of like agents in our industry and stuff like that.
Well, I think it's commitment.
Yeah.
When you take, in the real estate market, okay, if they can get a couple of quick hits, fine.
Right.
The career is, okay, how are you going to survive doing this for 30 or 40 years? So
Mm-hmm.
how are you going to build a network? How are you going to build a reputation?
Yeah.
What are you putting out that you're going to stake your reputation on?
Yeah.
Just as you said earlier, hey, mea culpa, I made a mistake.
Right.
All right, if that's the way you do business, that's what people are going to respect.
Yeah.
They don't expect perfection.
Yeah, I mean it's it's interesting because one of the things I talk about a lot too is just about how you could get the quick sale, the quick buck, and I compare it to golf in the sense of that it's a whole game. You have to be
Yes.
able to play with all the different clubs, and the reality is that the quick sales aren't going to make you a better agent. It'll make you a couple bucks today, but sometimes passing on the quick sales and doing what's right for your client will maybe not give you the sale today, but they'll remember that and they'll eventually come back to you and remember. they know other people.
Exactly.
And then those people will use you. And then if those people like you, they'll refer you to other people. So one
Exactly.
person can send into 100 sales in a lifetime. And one sale will never get you all the extra business. So you have to look at the bigger picture when you look. And any sales or career job, that's what I talk about is it is about a career. It's about the
Yes.
full picture. And realizing that one mistake or doing one small thing to make $1 today could really affect you down in the future for your career.
Exactly. Then the third thing that I think is very important, again, very akin to the game of golf. Golf's the only sport. There's no ref, no ump, no linesman. In golf, you call infractions on yourself. Just
Yeah.
like leadership. Okay, you know when you did it well, and you know when you didn't.
Yeah.
So what are you doing when nobody's looking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So what typically do you see holds people back from being good leaders?
I think understanding that difference, excuse me, as I stated earlier, you manage process, but you lead people.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be micromanaged, but if you treat people the same way you treat a process, the process is here's how I want it done.
Yeah.
Leadership is here's what needs to be done. Matt, you go figure out how you're going to get it done.
Right.
I used to have employees come to me, how am I going to get this done? Look, if I have to tell you how to do your job, there's one too many of us around and I'm not leaving.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
But
Yeah.
again, leadership, go figure it out. That's what
Yeah.
you get paid for.
Yeah.
Right? But if you try to make all the decisions for somebody, tell them how to do something,
Yeah.
you've enabled them not to think.
Yeah.
You want them to think. You're paying for them to think. Why
Right.
not get all of them?
Right. No, it makes a lot of sense. And what about like kind of spinning off that employees that are working, for poor leaders? What advice do you have for an employee who's having like a tough time with their boss?
Well, when I coach clients, I think leadership travels in three directions. All right. So you have people that may be underneath you. You have to lead those people in a certain way. There's
Yeah.
also leading at your peer level in an organization. There's also leading up the ladder. Right?
Yeah.
So how do you lead up the ladder? You have to take into consideration who you're dealing with, what their personality type is, and how do you communicate with them more effectively.
Yeah.
So I think if you look at it as a challenge of how do you get through to that person up above, because most times if they're a bad manager, they just don't know the path to good leadership.
Do you feel like most time people are like quitting their manager, not like the company?
9 times out of 10, but the manager is a symptom of the company.
Yeah.
If there's bad management, it's usually from top down. It's usually not at a mid-level. It's from the top down.
So like maybe kind of like what you're saying earlier, that a lot of people maybe identify something that they think is good, don't give them the right tools to be like a really successful manager or leader, and that kind of
Or the freedom.
does a topple down effect.
Right. Go get it done. Don't do it my way. Go do it your way.
Yeah.
Just get it done.
Micromanaging maybe too much and letting them. I mean, that's a big thing to think about too. Is for people who have companies, you may like to do things one way, but the other person's really good at their job, but they may do things a little bit different, and that's what could be holding them back from being great, and maybe builds up more animosity or something like that.
Well, again, it's what do you want them to think on their own?
Right.
I think a good leader says, okay, here's what needs to be done.
Right.
Now we're paying Mickey to go do this. Mickey, go figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay, do it your way. You can rarely do it my way. You're not me. You don't think like me. You don't act like me. Go do it your way. Figure out what the best way is for you and go get it done. But that's the manager has to let go.
Right.
The leader does let go.
Yeah.
The other part is that the manager thinks they have to have the answer. Come to me for the question. No, a good leader knows they just have to find the answer. They don't have to have it.
Right.
Then they tap into their people and say, okay, let's talk about this. What do we need to do here? And when you tap into the brain power of all your people, you're going to get the best answer.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just trying to figure out like letting go and figuring out what other ideas are out there on the table. So maybe we could do a quick analysis on our leadership environment here, and we can ask Mickey here, what type of leadership culture do you think we have at our group?
I think that it's we all look up to you, and you give us some good advice. And when we need help, we don't feel like we can't come to you. And it's nice that we each have our own businesses,
Right.
But we all under the group.
Right.
So in that way, I think we're all successful because we can come to you, but we all work up by ourselves as well.
What would you say are 3 words to describe me as a leader?
3 words. Knowledgeable. You can be sometimes a bit scary.
Okay.
And helpful.
Okay. And now, Phil, what do you think of these answers? What type of constructive criticism, just off the bat, of something small like that, of a small synopsis, would you say that we need to
Not
focus
sure
on?
scary is the way I'd want to go with that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
That,
matter
that
of,
probably wasn't the right word, yeah.
I mean, if you command respect,
Yeah.
and that's it, it's kind of like, power versus authority.
Right.
The organization can give somebody a title, and that's their authority.
Right.
Power you earn.
Mm-hmm.
It's like respect.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would rather have, the people thinking, okay, they respect you because of what you do, how you treat them,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of results you're actually getting.
Yeah.
And if it's, if the scare, I know I've been told I'm intimidating. I don't see it at all.
Right.
But it's.
I thought that when you walked in the door, though. I was intimidated.
But it's again, can you grow those people?
Mm-hmm.
And the only way you can grow them is to push them.
Right.
And nice thing about being human is once we get stretched,
Mm-hmm.
we stay stretched. We don't snap back like rubber bands.
Right.
And people need to grow, and that's
Yeah.
where the accomplishment comes in,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can grow them again, and then you can grow them again. And so
Right.
there should be that challenge to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I believe, and I say I'll push you harder than you ever been pushed before, and you'll either, fold like a chair, or you're going to survive and be a better agent, and that's it. I mean, unfortunately, in our business, it's a very, most bosses only make money if they make money, so they don't really care what you do, whereas we run a little bit of a different animal, so I just wanted them to be super successful and give them as many tools as possible to try to be successful on their own, so... but kind of like changing subject a little bit, like and touching on real estate, because we do have a lot of listeners out there that are in the real estate field, and there could be like a lot of high turnover, turn and burn industry, and it's a lot of long hours, and there's no guaranteed results. What advice would you give specifically to realtors that are in leadership roles with their teams out there?
I'd say have those honest conversations. Why are you people getting into this? What is it that motivates them to get into that? And again, is it a job or a career?
Yeah.
And are they willing, if it's a career, are they willing to put in the foundational work that
Yeah.
will make them good and make them successful? Point we touched on earlier. How do you go out and build relationships versus just make contacts? Because
Yep.
you're right. Most people go to a networking event, they want to hit on somebody there. You don't want that. You want
Right.
the hundreds or thousands of people behind them in their network. But you can
Right.
only gain that by taking the time, investing it, and creating relationships. So if somebody's going to make a career out of this, let's do the right foundational things.
Yeah, and then what about helping them build momentum and motivating their team, like without forcing burnout? Because in our industry, burnout is actually like a really, really high rate. I like to say almost maybe 90% of agents drop out in their first year. Yeah, I mean, people get in the business, they think it's going to be, they see on TV you're going to make $300 million in the first year, and that you get to pick your hours, which doesn't exist. And then they find out they're working 100 hours a week, and you don't necessarily make money for the first couple of years at all. And then they're like, you know what, screw it, I'm quitting. So like, what advice, knowing that information, would you give to a leader trying to help, reduce that burnout?
First of all, realistic expectations.
Yeah.
Okay, and just what you said. You're not going to make your killing in your first year.
Yeah.
And if you want to be successful at this, you better be willing to invest. Now, I'm not saying you have to put in 100-hour weeks.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of just time. It's how smart are you?
Mm-hmm.
Are you doing, again, those foundational things are going to build that long, broad foundation so you can build that high tower for yourself.
Yeah.
But again, it is work.
Yeah.
I don't know any easy business right now.
There's no such thing as going outside and shaking a tree and cash just comes down. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'd like to shake the tree all the time if that was possible. But
If it was out there, I think I would have found it.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta roll up your sleeves and just do some hard work, and that's just how life is. And no matter what happens, I remember my first year in the business, I did 0 sales. My second year, I did 1 sale. It was 4 years went by, and I did more sales in a week than I did my first 4 years in the business. And I say, it took time though. You had to go. You got to go through hell to get to heaven, and that's just the way it's going to work.
But once you build that reputation, and like you said, you build that
Right.
network, it's not the one person, it's everybody that they know
Exactly.
who's looking to buy or sell. Oh, you got to go talk to Matt.
Yeah,
He's the
exactly.
guy.
And we have what we call the Fast Five, where the co-host asks 5 questions. Mickey, what do we got here?
Good. You ready? What's the best piece of advice you ever received?
From a client, from a boss that he had, he said, when you're making a sales call, would that prospect pay for you to be there? Are you bringing enough value that they'd actually pay for your sales call? Now, if you look at it that way, you better be bringing something.
Yeah, that's actually good. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you love to win or do you hate to lose?
Love to win.
Love to win.
Go
What
from
did,
the
what did you say?
positive perspective.
Yeah, I that's my favorite question because I hate to lose, but
Yeah.
there's
most
obviously
people
millions.
say love to win, don't
Yeah,
they?
yeah, most people say I love to
Yeah.
win.
Who is your biggest hero?
Got to be mom.
Yeah.
Learned so many
Yeah.
very cool things from my mother.
Okay. If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
A superpower. I think the ability to read minds, it would make coaching go a lot quicker.
Man, that would be,
A lot
yeah.
easier, yeah. And lastly, what makes you Chicago?
I can probably tell you the top 10 pizza places.
Oh, that's a good
Oh,
one.
yeah.
Well, what's number
yeah,
one?
Yeah, what's
Yeah.
number one?
Lou Malnati's.
Okay, he's a
Luz,
Luz guy.
okay.
All right, yeah, there's a lot of
Touristy,
big Luz
yeah.
fans out there. So where can people find you and what would you want to plug?
I plug, if you have a purpose, get some support.
Nice.
They can find me at phil@leapcoaching.com,
Okay.
leapcoaching.com for my website, and my book is on Amazon.
Awesome. Make sure to tune into our next episode and subscribe to our podcast. Thanks for listening to the Matt Laricy Project. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast, follow us on Instagram, and like us on Facebook.